So I just finished reading A Dangerous Fortune by Ken Follett. This is the fourth book that I've read by Mr. Follett. So the other three books being The Pillars of the Earth, World Without End, and Century 1. So the first book out of the Century trilogy, Fall of Giants, actually. I really enjoyed his style of writing. You know, it's all about setting up the scene, you know. Everything is about the settings. I really enjoyed that type of writing. It reminded me in a way of Dan Simmons, which I've not read a lot of books by Mr. Simmons, but I've read mainly The Terror. Yeah, just that book actually. But and The Terror was kind of the same thing. You know, it's all about settings, setting up the background and everything of what's going on. And in here, you know, in A Dangerous Fortune is one of my favorite time period. I think a lot of people like this period, but the Victorian London, you know, era, so Victorian England. Actually, I really enjoyed that because it's kind of hypocritical. I really enjoyed that time period because it's hypocritical in a way. You know, it was all about appearances. I know it sounds weird that it's my favorite time period or whatever saying that, but to be honest, you know, I really enjoyed that because it was all on the surface, while, you know, underneath there was all these rotten things happening. You know, women killing themselves because of how rotten everything were, because they were getting these diseases from their husband that were cheating on them, and they were, you know, the ones getting thrown rocks at for whatever reason, where it was, you know, the man who was kind of the problem. So I really enjoyed that time period. And it's also, you know, the start of, it's not really the start of science, but it's when, you know, weird experiments starting happening with medicine also, not only science but medicine. So I really enjoyed that. It's a great settings for horror, but here it's not a horror story. You know, it's mainly a love story. It's not the main story that's a love story. There's a love story, you know, underneath it. Just like in Pillars of the Earth, if you've read the book, you'll kind of get what I mean. Is that the love story is kind of underneath all these different stories. So it's mainly a story about a rich family, you know, and all their goings, you know, the conspiracies within the family, not only conspiracy but fight for power happening within the same family. I really enjoyed that book actually. The story takes place for 30 years or so, just shy of 30 years actually. And we see all these tribulations, as I said, for this family. So in a weird way, it reminded me of two other movies, you know, The Place Beyond the Pines, where you have Bradley Cooper and Ryan Gosling. You know, these two guys are... There's some stuff happening with these two, but it's not about these two, it's about their children. It's kind of the same thing here. You know, it's more about the children, you know, the fight they have together to fight for the power in here. Main difference is that in The Place Beyond the Pines, they were not brothers or cousins or anything. Whereas here, you know, it's more or less all within the same family. And it reminded me also in another movie, and I should read the book that the movie is based off, and it's The Devil All the Time, in a way that tragedy shape you in a weird way. And it's same thing in here, you know, the tragedy shaped the main character, and, you know, how he's able to survive throughout all the things that life, not only life but others, throw at him, and others from his own family, people that they should protect him, they're not protecting him, they're throwing him to the sharks or whatever. I really enjoyed that concept actually. So back to the story, as I said, we're in England in Victorian time, and we're following a family of bankers mainly. I don't want to talk too much about this story, so that's mainly what I'll say. There's, if you're interested in Victorian time period stories, happening within that time period, I would suggest reading that. There's a lot of murder, there's cheating, there's love, sickness, and death. There's a lot of stuff happening within this book. It's a 600 pages book. It's not a short read, but it's one that's definitely worth it because, as I said, once again, it just the setting up the places. Mr. Follett has a way of immersing you in a story by giving you all the surroundings, buildings, what they look like, the smell, the fog, the dampness of London. You really feel it. I really enjoyed that, actually. So I really, once again, to get back to that Victorian time period, I really enjoyed that it's set in that particular time period, because everything, as I said previously, is on the surface. It's just a facade of what was really going on behind the curtains. And I really enjoyed that it's a story of bankers, because it just strengthened that image of essentially a house of cards, that everything can crumble when you have just these things that are only just for show. So I really enjoyed that, and it just, gave a stronger point to that time zone and kind of a critic point of view of that, time period and the banking society as a whole. I don't know if it was intended to, but that's something that I've got actually from reading the book, and I really enjoyed that. So that's it for the review of this book. Next week, I'll be talking about The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. I'm midway through the book. Right now, I'm liking this book. It's a rather short read, actually, but I'll be talking about that book next week. So once again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.